Welcome, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Obvious Leadership Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joey. We got our other host, Omar, on the line here. We've got some hot stuff we want to talk about today.
Oh, yeah. Now, obviously, you guys know we talk leadership. This is what we do, right? And today's topic is about consistency in messaging. And what do we mean? Okay. Joy and I were talking about this off camera. And when it comes to being consistent with the messaging, if you ever caught yourself doing fire drills, and if you've been in sales, you know exactly what a fire drill is all of a sudden, all hands on deck. We got to stop everything we're doing. And this is now just the one focus. Now, it's one thing to do a fire drill. That's somewhat going to still be consistent with some of the messaging because it's typically on a certain KPI that you just need to hit. Could be like the last few days of the month. We got to hit this KPI to bring this metric up before the month of the quarter is over. Cool. Imagine what the lack of consistency does to, because a fire drill is already bad with your team. Okay. If you're a leader, you know this. If you're in sales with a leader that does a lot of fire drills, you already know how much it sucks. Okay. But imagine how much trust and support and cooperation you lose when all of a sudden you're moving in one direction. Your messaging is being consistent about here. And yeah, you do some pivots, but the messaging is still fairly consistent. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, not even at the start of a new quarter, could be in the middle or towards the end of a quarter, you flip the script, whether it's you or the company, and now you're going in a completely different direction. And the people that were doing amazing, the numbers are there, the sales are there, they're following the program. And now you're reprimanding them for following the program that you had in place for a year that they were very successful in.
Yep.
What kind of message does that send to not just that individual that is one of your top performers, but also to the rest of the individuals, the rest of the organization that you have? Okay.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, man, what message is that sending to the leader? And so I feel like the message a lot of times becomes, we need you to be who we want you to be as a salesperson. We want you to sell how I want you to sell, like as the company, right? Listen to what I say, because what I know, if you sell the way I want you to, you're going to be successful, right? In the company's eyes. And man, like you were talking about this, and I feel it coming up, man. I'm like, like I got so much to say on this, because like not only are you burying the personality of that salesperson, right? You're also burying the personality and what the effectiveness of that leader, right? Because when you switch targets and you're consistently doing that, it's not only hard for the salesperson, but it's also hard for the leader, right? You can't get people to, follow you or, like hear what you have to say if you're always trying to change your targets. Just like we were talking about, consistency is key, right? To making sure that, like, I know that when I go to my leader, this is what he's always, or she is always going to be talking about, right? This is what they're passionate about, right? And what they should be passionate about is the growth of me as a salesperson, right? Or the growth of us as a team, the growth of everybody as a company, right? Not just on this little topic of the month that the company wants to focus on, right? Or the topic of the week, right? And man, I'm telling you, this burns me up, right? Like, so and you're gonna have to help me on this analogy here, but there's a flagpole that tells which way the wind is blowing. It's a fabric with a hole in it, right? You've seen that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called. I have no clue.
It's like that little cone thing.
Yeah, right. Okay, so if you want your leaders to be that little cone thing, I think as a company you need to reevaluate where your leaders play the role in the success of your company, right? Because if they are just that little cone and they're pivoting, just like you want them to. Unfortunately, the message that they're giving your team members is incorrect, right? Because it's not consistent, and you're trying to build an assembly line, right?
Yep.
You need your leaders to be the wind directing that message, right? They need to be in control. They need to take the direction in what you want to go and where you want to go, and apply that individually to the people that are on their team, right? To be
Oh yeah.
successful, to be the most successful, right? You need to promote that safe environment, right? Where the leader can be who they know they will be, more effective in coaching this way in a consistent way, and everybody will be,
Yeah.
But
Big time.
I'll back off for a little bit there, man. I'm telling you, like that's one of the things. Oh man, like and I was passionate about as a leader in all my positions. If it's one thing that I am, is consistent, right? In my temperament and in the different aspects of my personality, I strive to be consistent, and I feel like
You have
everybody
to.
wants to. But if the company is not consistent what they want to focus on, like what choice do you have?
Now and I'll say this, right? Because Joe, I just did, I just finished up my employee coaching program a couple weeks back. And that was one of the key tenets, right? Is the consistency in the messaging and how you go about coaching. Because at the end of the day, the one largest variable that you're going to have in any interaction, in any kind of program that you set up, any kind of process that has to do with sales, is going to be the human variable. And the way, and I've talked about this before, the way that you and I, right, Joey, you and I can go to the same training, the same seminar, the same whatever, and we will take a much different approach to the information that was given to us and how we internalize and what we take away from that. And it's going to be the same way with the people on our teams. Right. So we have to understand that aspect. And when we start flipping the script dramatically on everybody, and guys, don't get me wrong, you know this, I've said it every single time, change is constant. Change will happen, and we will pivot to that change. And there's a way to do it correctly, and there's a way to do it where it just destroys the morale in the organization and takes a much longer time to build up. Because once that trust is gone and is broken, you need to rebuild it. And it takes a lot more time and effort to get to that point again than what it was before. And that's where the messaging, the words used, how it's brought about makes a big difference. And guys, as a leader, I get it. We got to play that devil's advocate where we got to push the company's priorities. I get that. You also need to learn how to push back. Yeah. Like you need to be vocal. And I'm not saying push back just to push back and be, an asshole about things. No, like there's an appropriate way to do it where you're actually speaking to the individuals that need to be brought this information that they may be lacking. Because a lot of people are afraid if they speak up or speak out, I will no longer have a seat at the table. And guess what? If that's the organization that you're in, then that's not the organization for you. Because as a leader, you should never be afraid to be able to bring information and be able to speak up to your superiors, to your leadership, because that's what they should want. They should want to understand what is actually happening in the front lines, as opposed to, well, this is what the reports are showing, because reports can be skewed. Numbers don't lie, but people do. And we can manipulate as people. We will and can manipulate knowingly or unknowingly the numbers that we are going after, because we might have a bias and want to look for something that's going to confirm what we are trying to say. Yet disregard the rest of the information that says, but that is not the case. Right.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest thing when it comes to only relying on reports. It doesn't tell you the true story about what's going on.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing with managing to reports, right? And we've talked about this before. If you are one of those people who only manage to reports, you're one of those people on that swivel, right? You're one of those people that are always pivoting your message. Okay, guys, Rick, we got good at this. Like, let's get good at this now. And then all of a sudden, you're not good at the thing you used to be. So now, yeah, you got to go back, right? And then
And the whole
that's not
time you're reprimanding the team for doing what you've been telling them to do.
exactly, man. But if you find a way to message it consistently that approaches every aspect of your business and you coach that way, it it will get done, right? And like I said, as a leader in my career, I've always been successful in separating myself from what, whether people want to hear this or not, like in what they wanted, and what the company wanted. Like, I never once said the company wants me to do this, so I'm going to do this. Like, no, we're going to stay consistent with what we've been doing. But if we need to add an extra layer to hit a certain metric, we're going to work on implementing that in a comfortable way in what we are already successful in doing, right? And
Yep.
taking that approach, it's a little bit slower approach, right? Because it's going against, like your workflow and things like that, right? You're trying to throw something else in there. But if you work with the people to help them integrate it, right, and find a way to make that part of your successful approach to whatever it is you're trying to do, sell or service, or and many different things, right? I think you will be successful in implementing it that way. But if you're sitting here and just, like I said, just bouncing around, and flavor of the week kind of thing, you're giving your people the wrong message, right? And you are
Yeah.
not, I mean, say it. Like, at that point, you're not a leader, right? You're not a leader. All you're doing is just managing reports.
Yeah. And here's the thing, guys. If you're trying to reduce churn, if you're trying to increase morale, obviously that's not going to happen doing it that way,
Right.
right? Because yes, change is constant. Change will occur. Change will always be here. And how we pivot is going to be detrimental to how we move forward or how we stay stuck,
Yep.
right? And that is always lost on a lot of different layers of leadership. And I say layers of leadership because obviously you have leadership at the top that says we need to pivot to this, right? Because of, the VABs are changing or whatever is happening, right? We need to pivot to this. Okay, cool. They're not going to tell you what you need to do in order to pivot. They're saying this is where we need to go from a high level. How that occurs is now disseminated through the different layers of leadership.
Right.
And everybody's trying to vie to see how and who is going to come out on top, because the ones who can pivot to that direction the fastest are going to be the ones leading the pack and who everybody's going to look to. And you
Right.
get there through proper training. Because imagine, to your point, Joy, you've trained your team so well that being able to make that pivot isn't that big of a change.
Yeah.
It's not going against the grain. You're not going against the flow. It's just slightly moving the direction of the flow, but we're still going full blown, 100% steam power in that same spot now.
Yeah.
And we were already on point to be able to key into what they were looking at because
Right.
we've been on point with things. And
Yep.
boom, you're getting it, you're growing, and everybody's like, why are they doing it so easily compared to us that are struggling because our leadership is, not training us properly? And guys, if in any organization, you're going to see that doesn't matter how great the training is, unless it's fully implemented from the top down. It's like little small, so one of the books I read, they call them like fiefdoms, right? So small little kingdoms. Everybody's vying to get the attention. Executives are at the top, essentially fighting each other, trying to be the executive that's going to be the next one up as president or CEO. And it's the same thing
Yep.
as you go up the ladder because there's less positions. So everybody essentially, as you get lower, is trying to vie for that next attention spot, and the next spot that's going to get them that attention, right?
Right.
So being able to stay on top is going to be important, and training and focusing on a key messaging is what happens. That is what will get you there with less issue and trouble. And it's important that the messaging is consistent. I'm not saying it has to be the same. There's a difference. We're not saying no change. We're saying
Right.
there's going to be change, Messaging is consistent, and we're still pivoting and moving where we want to get to.
Yeah, it's two different conversations, and I think we're talking about this, and I think a lot of this will probably come to me after we finish recording, right? And how I should have, like I said, my passion goes to a different level when it comes to this, man, because I try to be a very consistent person, but and also, I mean, like I said, there was one point in my career where I didn't want things to change, right? But I soon found out very quickly that the growth happens, when you start changing, right? When you
Yep.
start adapting
In that
to new things.
uncomfortable zone.
Right, exactly, man. You got to be there, man. And but that doesn't mean that you have to change. And like I said, I don't know how to express this, man. Just like we're talking about, you
Bro,
got to
the
have
easiest way is your workout routine. Think
if
of
you
it that way, right? It's a small change. Like, you got to make a small change to adapt so that, you were lifting a certain way, and all of a sudden, boom, 1 year you're 35, the next year you're 36, and now all of a sudden your joints hurt.
oh, it happened right before that. Let me tell you, it happened before that. But yeah, that's a great analogy, man, because if you're consistently working out, right? If you're consistently working out, then you need to find out that, hey, look, I need to do things that are less impacted on my joints, right? You're still going to be working out, right? But you're not going to be doing the same things in the same way, right? But the end result, hopefully that you are still maintaining a healthy a healthy regimen, so that you're where you need to be health wise, right?
Yep.
So I think that's a great way to put it, because you're still going to be working that muscle, right? You're still going to be doing the things to maintain your health, but you are going to be doing it in a different way, right? And you're finding that transition. So I like that.
Yeah, I mean, think of it this way, right? Even when you like switch grips or stances, how it works different muscle groups.
Yeah.
So you're going to eventually hit a plateau. You got to switch it up. It's the same way. And that's what we're saying when it comes to messaging, right? Because imagine working out and then you're constantly changing everything that you're doing without giving your body the ability to actually grow. I'm not saying to adapt so that it plateaus, but that you can be consistent and be able to do what you need to do, right? If you look at most workout regimens, they'll switch up every about 60 to 90 days. And there's a
Yeah.
reason for that, because you will plateau.
Right.
It's a rotation, and that rotation can be, it's not like, oh, we need to switch it up 100% and not do the same things. It might be switching up certain things, certain grips, certain stances. It might be, switching up the days, right? The order.
Right.
And then you'll see that will maintain or grow what you're trying to achieve. And it's the same way when we're talking about our salespeople, when we're talking about our teams, our organizations.
Yeah.
You don't need to reinvent the wheel every single month, confusing your team, sending mixed messaging, and not being consistent in some manner or way.
Yeah. And so since we're talking about working out, this is how sometimes the messaging comes across, right? One week you're like, man, like, you need to work on cardio and cardio only. You're going to do treadmill. You're going to be doing stair stepper. You're going to be doing that all week, right? And then next week you're like, what am I doing? Like, all weights. Like, I need to go back to all weights, right? Like, and then so you that week you're all weights, and then back, like, that's not a workout regimen, right? That's not training any kind of muscle. You're not getting better in any sense if you're sitting here changing it all the time, right? And by the way, there's a deeper layer to that. There's deeper layers of muscles, right? There's a difference between working out on machines, right? Doing bench on machines versus using dumbbells, right? You work different fiber of your muscle, and that could be a difference in messaging, right? Hey, look, we're going to do machine weights this week. We're going to be doing free weights this week, right? And you're still going to be working that muscle, but you're going to affect a different part of your muscle, right? And that should be the difference in the messaging, not cardio versus weight, versus working out weights, right? And I feel like sometimes that's how some companies think that they're going to be successful, right? Oh no, let's pivot, and like no, that's we learned that from friends,
Yeah.
Man.
No, so I mean that's my 2 cents. Joe, I don't know if you got more to share on this topic. I just like everything else, right? I think it's funny because we've talked about early on in the series, and we brought it up earlier in our off video session, time management, right? It's one of these topics that we can just consistently keep going on and on and on and on about, because there's so many different points and angles to it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it just has to do with how confident you are as a leader, man, and that's why we're here talking about it today, right? That's what we want to help people do: grow your confidence as a leader, right? And grow, and kind of like you were saying earlier, how to push back, but push back, in a respectful way, and things like that, man. I just, like I said, I have a really big passion about being consistent and things like that. But man, I think that's all I got today, man. We could go on for hours.
All right, guys. So we want to thank you again for stopping by, checking out another episode of the Obvious Leadership Podcast. As always, let us know what your thoughts are. Don't be shy. Send us a message. Follow us on our socials, LinkedIn, TikTok, the works, right? And hit that like and follow button and let us know what you guys think. We'll catch you on the next one.
And thanks. See y'all later.
And that brings us to the end of today's Obvious Leadership episode. Remember, every great leader starts with one step, and you're already on your way. Small changes lead to significant impact. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, and remember that leadership is the key to unlocking extraordinary results.